What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is Dr. J. Ph.D. Singh joining you here to be able to answer a valued viewer's question. Thank you guys so much for submitting your questions in the comments below. If you have a question that has anything to do with academia, especially stuff that, maybe you're a little bit worried to be able to ask other people, your own supervisor, maybe you're an early career professional, you've just gotten your first assistant professorship job, maybe you're a little bit nervous about asking other people in your department, you can always feel free to ask me. I will always shoot you straight. That's what I do. That's what I am here for. So always appreciate the love. If you guys can do me a big favor and hit the big old thumbs up button, which is the like button, that is on your screen right now. It's super appreciated. If you enjoy our content and you are not yet a subscriber, we would love to be able to have you here in our community. So what I always try to do for you guys, as you guys know, is to be able to give you as much honest advice as I can give you from being in the game for about 15 years, having over 90 publications, being somebody who has had the pleasure in the past of publishing multiple academic books, getting grant funding before, you name it, I've been there, I get the game. So I want to make sure that I'm as supportive to you guys as I conceivably can be. So let's go ahead and take a look at the question for today, which was asked by Garfield. Lots of love to you, Garfield. Thank you so much for asking. Garfield, it's a very simple question, but it's a very important one, so I want to make sure to answer it for all of you. And Garfield says, I would love to hear your perspective on online PhD programs. Can you make a video on this for us? So absolutely, Garfield. Like I said, thank you so much for asking. What I've tried to do is to be able to distill my thoughts down into 5 key points that I want to share with you in terms of my personal thoughts on this and also just my experience, all right? So here's the 5 things that I want to say. The first thing is that there's no doubt that online education is the future of education. I certainly do believe that. As I mentioned in other videos, the last company that I built and then grew and scaled, etc., was an e-learning company that was in the field of forensic mental health. I was super passionate about it. What a terrific experience that was for me. We had a successful exit back in 2017, which was a total blessing. So I'm a huge believer in online education, and the literature suggests that the amount of knowledge acquisition is the same, if done properly, following evidence-based standards in e-learning, is the same as in-person education, and also that the level of knowledge retention, when done properly, can actually be statistically significantly higher when it comes to online education. But this is assuming that people know exactly what they're doing, and every single professor that you have is going to be, using evidence-based best practices. Let's be honest, very few of them are going to. Most people are going to attend a few simple seminars in how to be able to use online technologies, e-learning technologies, and that's pretty much it. They're going to teach the same way that they were always teaching in person. For the most part, it's inertia, right? Most academics, it's one of these situations where, especially if they're a little bit older, if they were a little bit younger, let's say that they were assistant professors instead of tenured full professors, then they would probably want to go back and modify all of their course materials to be able to optimize them for e-learning. Because things that are done in person, they do have proxies that you can utilize to be able to make them effective online. But simply taking something that you would normally do in person and saying, well, I'm just going to do the exact same thing with no modifications online, that is not a great idea. And that is something that is actually going to get you further away from success as an instructor rather than closer. If it's something where you guys are interested in me making some videos on e-learning and these sorts of things, you guys can let me know in the comments below. But I do believe that the future of most education has an online component. I'm not saying that it's all online, but I think that an online component is definitely in the cards in the future. That's the first thing that I wanted to say. Second thing, Garfield, is that you have to understand that most of education is a business. This took me forever, Garfield, to really wrap my head around and to be able to really understand. If you follow the money in academia, you can usually learn a tremendous amount. I'm not just talking about universities. I'm talking about journal publishers, book publishers, you name it. If you understand the financial aspect of how academia works, you're going to get a lot further along in your career. I can tell you that right now. And when it comes to certain private institutions, shall we say, right, they're geniuses because usually they have very few full-time faculty members. Instead, what they do is they use a lot of adjuncts. So, way more than half, well, I got other videos on this on the channel, way more than half of all new positions in academia are adjunct and are not tenure-track positions because you can pay people a lot less. And think about it like this, right? I mean, you have seen how fast, especially in the United States, we have had this skyrocketing student loan crisis. and the cost of education has gone up and up and up and up. So the fact of the matter is that if I pay a professor who's a tenure track position, let's say approximately $68,000 to $75,000, which is about what you're going to get these days for most programs in the liberal arts and social sciences. I'm a psych guy, So what happens is that in a case like that, you either, pay somebody 68 to 75 grand, or on the other side, you pay somebody like $2,500 to be able to teach a class. That's insane. $2,500 to teach a class. In that class, I've got, 20, 30 people sometimes, each of which are paying, dozens and dozens of thousands of dollars a year in tuition to be able to take these classes. So, the ironic thing is that usually simply having 2 people in the class automatically pays for the class. So the margin from a business perspective is absolutely massive. So it makes sense that people are coming up with these meaningless degree programs. If you're just getting a master's or just getting a doctorate, to be able to say, well, I have a master's or I have a doctorate, or you want to go and get an MBA, for example. I don't have an MBA. I've run more successful businesses than most people who have MBAs. It just doesn't make any sense. Make sure that the degree program that you're going into, especially if it's an online degree program, because then the costs are cut even more, because you can pack those classes. Right? It depends on the university. Some of them do cap the classes, but other ones do not cap the classes. And because of that, you can have a ludicrous number of people in there, meaning that the margin is optimized for the education provider, for the educator, right? And not the instructor. I'm talking about just like, you've got a journal, you got the publisher. Here you've got the instructor, the individual professor, but they're part of a much larger machine, a much larger system, right? So you have to be careful of that, because it can dilute the quality of the education that you're receiving if you're not careful in your choice of what kind of program you choose, okay? So that's the second point that I've got, is watch, maximization of business margins for companies. It can dilute the quality of the education. Number 3 is that, I gotta be honest with you, I'm always honest with you guys. I take it really seriously. At least in mental health, right, in behavioral health, online programs don't have the best reputation. Some of them are better than others for sure. But what I would have to say, I am currently filming this, what is it? It is October 6, 2020, okay? Maybe this will be different, next year, which I doubt it, right? But certainly within the next 10 years, right? These programs are going to get a lot stronger. A lot stronger. Right now, though, it reminds me of almost when PsyDs started, PsyD programs instead of clinical psych PhDs. When PsyD programs kicked off, people really thought this is bogus and we don't trust these guys and it's not as good as everything else and this kind of stuff. And it took literally decades for it to get to where the reputation is now. That is what I think is going to happen when it comes to online universities, right? Even the really, really big ones that you see right now, for example, in the United States, right? So that's just something to know, is that in terms of the current reputation, they're not stellar. You should just know that, right? The funny thing is that I'm a part of a lot of different LinkedIn groups and these things. And a lot of people will ask, because of their current life circumstances, maybe they have young kids, maybe they have a full-time job, maybe they're taking care of I hope not, but a sick parent or something like this. If that's the case, they may not have the ability to go to an in-person program. I have very dear friends of mine who are in that situation, but want to further their education, right? And they have figured out that in their particular form of employment, that there are more opportunities for people with very specific degree programs. They're not getting them just to get them. They're not getting, a doctorate in metaphysical sciences for no particular reason other than wanting to be called Dr. such and such, right? Don't do things like that. Doesn't make any financial sense whatsoever. And I care about your finances if you're watching this. So that's the thing, right? It's just, you should know that, right? Most of the time, also, this is a good thing to know. Most of the time, this number 4, it's not going to be known by your clients if you're a clinician, whether you did an online program or not, unless it's an online-only university. It's the same reason why some people go to satellite campuses for Ivy League schools, is because the degree still has the name of the Ivy League university on it, even though you went to a satellite campus, right? You were not at Ithaca for Cornell, you were not in Cambridge for going to Harvard, right? You were not in those places. You attend a satellite campus, the degree is still a degree program, right? So that's just something that you should know. So a lot of the times it's hard, if not impossible, to be able to find out who attended in person versus who attended online, okay? The 5th one, though, is a valued point, which is essentially that there is no proxy for in-person communication. Or in-person relationships. It's like having a long-distance romantic relationship versus an in-person romantic relationship. Education is something that was meant to happen in person. It was, and now we're learning evidence-based ways to be able to make it happen effectively online. But that takes some time. One thing, though, that's important to know is that your cohort is very important to you. And what I mean by that is that the people you're going through the degree program with are people that usually you will stay in touch with, at least a few of them, throughout your career. And the opportunities that come through those personal relationships can be absolutely gigantic. They certainly have been for me. And so that's one of the big benefits of attending either a blended program, which has an online component and an in-person component, or just attending in person. If you have the ability to attend a legit big name school, which is in person, you have the financial wherewithal to do it. You're not going to go into crazy student loan debt. You have the time. You have the ability based on where you are in, what stage of your life you're in and what season of life you're in, then I would do it. That's what I would genuinely recommend. And so those are my views on online PhD programs right now. Obviously, I'm talking about my experience in psych, all right? If you are in medieval history, then probably this advice may not apply to you. I don't know. But I can certainly tell you that when it comes to behavioral health, that is definitely my recommendation at the time of filming this, and I'll make you another video if I change my mind on it. All right, thanks so much, guys, and thank you to Garfield for the question. Be sure to like this video, give it a big old thumbs up, hit that bell so you get notifications every time we post new original content, and also be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. All right, guys, peace. Have a great day.